All right, everybody, welcome back to a 2024 version of the Field of 68 mid-major show. I am your host, Sean Paul, joined by my co-host, Brian Burton.
Let's
Brian,
go.
how you doing? Holidays are over and we're here.
Yeah, fabulous. New year 2024 and conference play is upon us. We're in it. So let's go.
We're fully in. There's no better way to bring in the new year than look back a little bit on what we thought in the preseason, probably change some predictions because there's been a lot in mid-major basketball that has gone differently than we thought so far, and make
Yeah.
some updated predictions in these conferences. So we'll just go alphabetical order. Let's start with the America East Conference. What are your takeaways here? Vermont, they're looking pretty good as usual. They've had some up and down games, but they're still Vermont. UMass Lowell has looked solid. Is there a sleeper you see here? Or is it going to be Vermont running through again?
I don't know if it's a sleeper or not, but UMass Lowell looks like they can actually challenge Vermont and
Mm-hmm.
had a really tough schedule. So I do think they're battle tested, but I think when you look at UMass Lowell being 9-4, being a team that is coming in, I don't know. I think it's been very rare that a team has been able to really challenge Vermont. And I love what Vermont's team's done. They're 10-5. Binghamton and New Hampshire at 8-5 in their preseason. I mean, having that many teams with winning records, they also have Albany's 8-7, Maine 8-7, Bryant eight
Yep.
and seven. They got that big win against FAU. So I think when conference play happens, it's definitely wide open. So yeah, the fact that they have, what did I say, 9 teams? What, one,
Winning
two,
records.
4, 5, 6, 7 teams with winning records going in. I mean, it's a strong year in the American East. So I think definitely sleepers in here in a really competitive conference in this league that has really been dominated by Vermont.
I'm with you. Vermont is a lot more 3-point reliant than they have been in the past because they don't have an Anthony Lamb or Ryan Davis to dump the ball down to like they did in prior seasons. And I think we're seeing that a little bit. Even Dylan Penn last year at the guard spot was able to penetrate and get inside. I don't really think they have that guy this year. So a lot of what they do is going to have to come from the perimeter. And they have the guys that can do it with Aaron Deloney and TJ Long and Matt Barreto. They have no shortage of pieces. But the biggest key for UMass Lowell is getting Abdul Kareem Coulibaly back, their big man. He's such a difference maker for that team. And when he's on the court, I think UMass Lowell is just as good as Vermont. But obviously, without him, they took a loss to Central Connecticut State. They've looked really questionable without him. But here's a weird stat on, or I guess good stat on UMass Lowell. They have the best 3-point percentage allowed defensively in college basketball. Opponents are only shooting 25% from deep against UMass Lowell from the 3-point line. So UMass Lowell is a really good defensive team. They have some
Yep.
scores too. It's going to be an interesting contrast of styles there, but that's definitely a conference race to look forward to. It's not going to be Vermont running through things as usual. And
Do you
another
have
really,
a new prediction in that league before we change to the ASUN?
I'm sticking with Vermont. I mean, it just doesn't feel right to not pick Vermont. And I think it's just one of those at this point to, you almost have to pick them until you're proven otherwise because they
I
just
would
win it
agree.
consistently.
I would agree. I think Vermont is still the most battle tested team. They played a really challenging schedule, like I said. And yeah, I like you. You didn't mention
I,
Jimmy Rose, but you talked a lot about
yeah.
him. That's
Mm-hmm.
a weapon that they have. And I think, yeah, now that they're excelling in conference play, that it's theirs till somebody takes it from them.
I will say though, the one thing I don't know if you're on the same page here, but the one thing I think about this Vermont team, they've been like a 12 seed, a 13 seed in the past, a 14 seed a couple of times. I think they're more of a 14, 15 seed this year because I think they will take some losses in conference play. I don't think they're that dominant to where they're going to lose like one conference game. I think they're going to lose like 4 or 5 maybe. I think this league is a lot more wide open than it's been. You have New Hampshire as Clarence Daniels, who's probably the best player in the league. You have Maine, who has some pieces. You have Albany, who has two really good guards with Amari Marshall and Sebastian Thomas. So you have a lot more pieces than this league typically does. So I think we'll see more of the top end teams taking some losses to the middle end teams.
Yeah, very well said. Let's jump into the ASUN. We have, as of right now, Lipscomb, probably the surprise team here, is really
Mm-hmm.
doing well. 9-6, Stetson 8-6, Kennesaw still doing well at 9-5. Trying to see any other winning teams. Jacksonville's 9-5. So those are the winning record teams. Who stands out to you in this one? And Florida Gulf Coast also got another big win
They did.
off
Huge
FAU.
win.
So hard not to mention them. And then Austin Peay's got some really talented transfers as well. So who sticks out to you in this league?
Yeah, I want to say Austin P, but they don't have enough up front for me to fully believe in them. They compete defensively. They have DeMarcus Sharp, who's an absolute stud, but they need to shoot the ball better.
Yeah.
That's just been the biggest thing for them so far. Only 31% from deep, and they have a ton of shooters. They need to shoot that basketball better. For me, I don't know what to think of Lipscomb. They just beat Florida State the other day on the road. Huge win.
Yeah.
But they didn't have Darren Boyd in that game as their leading scorer, and their best player, Jacob Ognosovic, hasn't played this entire year. So the fact that they were able to go on the road without their two best players is pretty impressive. But at the same time, can they win the league without getting Ognosovic back? And who knows how long Boyd's going to be out. So there's some questions with Lipscomb. My pick right now is probably Stetson for the fact they're terrible defensively. Like when I say they're not good, they are almost the worst defensive team in the country, 342nd in defensive efficiency. But this is an elite 3-point shooting team. Jalen Blackman is one of the top 5 scorers in college basketball. You have Stephen Swenson, who hasn't played nearly as well this year, but that's a guy who was really good last year. I think he could get it going a little bit. They are very top heavy in terms of scoring with Blackman, especially, but they have a little size with Trayton Thompson, who came over from Minnesota. They're just such a 3-point reliant team, but they competed against Cincinnati on the road. They beat UCF. This is a team that has competed against really solid competition. Their defense is bad, but I think their shooting will be able to put them right in that top conversation once again. Where are you leaning here?
Yeah, I was just gonna say Kennesaw State. I think is probably the one that is easy to forget about because coach
Mm-hmm.
left, and they have a new coach and Petaway was a really good coach as well and done a good job. I'm curious what your thoughts are on them because they have been able to sustain it. They had some good success early in the schedule. Don't know if they have a signature win just yet. The same Florida State team you talked about, Lipscomb beating, they lost to early on, but they have been able to get some wins along the way and put up some points. They just haven't been able to do it necessarily against the bigger tests, so to speak. So I'm curious, what is your thoughts on them? Northeastern, probably their best win, I
Mm-hmm.
guess, so far to this point.
I mean, they gave Indiana all they can handle the other day. I
It
think that was
scored
last
87 on
Friday.
Indiana. Yep,
Yeah,
180.
so it was close. It was a 13-point game, but it was a lot closer. It was like a 5-point game with like couple minutes left. I mean, in Kennesaw State led by 12 minutes left. So this was a close game. And
Yep,
they have some talent. They play the fastest tempo in college basketball. Coach Petway coming over from Alabama, the Nate Oates coaching tree is really
yeah,
going to play the up tempo style. They're going to shoot a lot of threes. Getting just Juan Holt eligible was big for them, a multi-time transfer. He had 19 in the game against Indiana. He's a big difference maker for them.
yep.
Then you have Terrell Burden and
Burton, of course, playing really well.
exactly. Then you have a Damon Robinson down low. You have a lot of pieces here. It wouldn't surprise me if they were able to win the league again. Do you see that kind of potential for them? Because they have the pieces, they have the shooting. I think it just comes down to finding that cohesion and consistency and hitting those threes consistently. Because overall, they're not a great 3-point shooting team, 32% from downtown, but they shoot a lot of threes. They're gonna have to connect on those. But a lot of teams in this conference shoot a ton of threes, so it's not anything different compared to other teams in the league.
Yeah, I think you mentioned Holt coming back. He's only played in
Mhm.
2 games. I think that could make them help them get over the hump. So it's kind of my dark horse choice. I don't know if I have a true favorite. I like what I like to love the head coach at Lipscomb. I love the job that they
Mhm.
do. Not sure. It feels pretty open, more open than
It
most.
is open, yeah. I mean, Eastern Kentucky was a favorite coming into the year, and they're 4-9 right now.
Yep.
In context is needed, of course. They had played Alabama and Purdue, and they lost both those games, but they also lost against UT Martin, Prairie View A&M. Those are games that you would expect a team that's favored to win their conference to win, and they weren't able to get it done. They have one win against a D1 opponent. The rest came against non-D1 competition. So they're 4-9, 262nd in Ken Palm, but I wouldn't be so quick to count them out though, because they still have a lot of talent. Devontae Blanton has not played well this year, and that's the biggest difference because he was arguably the best player in the league coming into the season. Michael Moreno is a good shooter. Tayshawn Comer has not played well. That's another guy that has really struggled this year. Leyland Walker hasn't shot the ball well from deep. Isaiah Kozart has really been the one guy that we all expected to be good that has been good. The rest of the pieces just haven't shown up, but I do lean with their pedigree a little bit that they'll be able to figure things out as conference play goes on because this was a team last year that won 23 games. They went to the CBI title and they lost to Charlotte. So I think we'll see a bit of an increase in Eastern Kentucky's level of play in ASUN play.
Yeah, let's move to the Big Sky. Weber State, Eastern Washington have probably been some of the teams people projected early on. Weber State's 9-4, playing really good ball. Portland State 10-4, Northern Colorado 6-6. Montana's probably been a surprise to get back
Mm-hmm.
where Coaches had them. Coach Travis DeCour has had them before at 8-5. So who stands out to you in this one as they get going in conference play? I think they just started. Yeah, they did.
Yep. It's still Weber State for me. They've had some up and down moments this year. Certainly, they lost by 16 at Utah Valley. They lost a close one against Colgate, lost a close one against Gardner Webb, and then got blown out by Nevada. But none of those are terrible losses. Those are all really solid teams so far. Weber State is 2-0 in league play. They beat Montana by 30. They beat Montana State by 22. And the biggest part of those two wins that stands out to me, especially the one against Montana, they beat Montana by 30, a good Montana team. That is not
Yeah,
a
very good.
pushover team. Exactly. Not a pushover team. Dylan Jones had 15 points, went 4 of 14 from the field. Last year, they're not winning that game by 30. Getting a guy like Blaze Threat to really shoot the ball well, Steven Verplanken, Dyson Kohler, all those guys stepping up and helping Dylan Jones is something that didn't happen last year. I think back to that Big Sky tournament where it was just Dylan Jones against Montana State. I think it went to double overtime, but he was just tossing up shots because nobody else was willing to take one.
Right.
So you need those guys to be willing to take those shots in the big moments. And I think Weber State will be a lot better if they're able to do that this year because they're going to be a good defensive team. They have a really good player in Dylan Jones. I think they're still the favorites to win the league, but there's obviously a lot of teams in that mix. Eastern Washington, like you mentioned, I expect them to be in that conversation. They struggled shooting the ball earlier in the year. They're getting a lot better now. Ethan Price shooting it better. Casey Jones, Cedric Coward had a huge game against Portland State. Jake Kyman, former UCLA and Wyoming guard. They have
Yeah.
two huge wins in conference play. Again, similar to Weber State, they just blew out their first two opponents. So I think those are the two favorites in the league.
Yeah, I'll go dark horse. I'm always biased to my boys in Colorado because they're down the street, but I do love St. Thomas. I think he's the second best player in this league
Mm-hmm.
behind Dylan Jones. I think offensively they do pose the most threat outside of Weber State to be. I think they're what number one in the league for conference only, and they've only played one game for their effective field goal percentage. I just think they can score. So if they can figure out how to get
Oh
some
yeah.
stops. I think they're going to have a chance. And if you go back to the team when Dalton Connect first got there,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and they had a really loaded team with Dalen Kuntz and Matt Johnson and Bodie Hume, they had a team that was
I love
right
that
there.
team. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just a high level scoring team. Korjan Kuch was in the middle, protecting the rim. They made it all the way and lost to Montana State in the championship. So I
Mm-hmm.
think this team is not quite that by any means, but they do have an elite offensive player and some really good guard play and enough offense that if they can figure it out defensively, I think they can challenge to get themselves a bid because ultimately it's not about winning the regular season. It's about can you get a chance to punch the ticket?
Well, since this is a team you're really familiar with, who would you say outside of St. Thomas is the guy they can rely on to get them to another Big Sky title game?
Yeah, I mean, I think it always starts with your alpha, and I think
Mm-hmm.
Jaron is a really good playmaker that can create plays for a lot of people. And then De Jure, I think is probably the next best shot creator and scorer on that team. So I
Mm-hmm.
would say those three need to play really well. Brock Wisney inside gives him some strength, some athleticism. I think he's only getting better as just a sophomore, getting to play a bigger role. So I think they have enough to do it. It's just the hard part in these situations is you got to be able to make threes in that tournament when it comes tournament time. And I think
Oh, no doubt.
that's going to be kind of that big difference maker for them. But let's jump to the Big South. What's who sticks out to you in this league, and what's your thoughts coming off the top?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a really interesting conference. I think most people, including myself, gave UNC Asheville the like they're going to run away at this league kind of
Right.
treatment. And so far, it's not been the case. They're fifth in Ken Palm in the conference. Obviously, Drew Pember missed some games. They've had a lot of injuries, but they seem to be finding their groove a little bit now. They are currently destroying USC Upstate. They had a really close game at UAB the other day, and they had won 3 consecutive games leading into that UAB game. Obviously, Pember is going to do what he does, but you need the other pieces to really contribute. That's Josh Banks, that's Caleb Burgess, and that's Fletcher Aby. If those three are able to help Pember out, this is going to be UNC Asheville team that could go to back-to-back NCAA tournaments. But my pick right now, and I guess it's kind of chalk at this point since they're the number one in Ken Palm, it's High Point. This offense is ridiculous. I
Yeah.
mean, the way that Alan Huss has this thing rolling, it's Duke Miles, who's been one of the better players in the conference. You have Kamani Hamilton. You have Trey Benham, a transfer from Lipscomb that's shooting almost 50% from downtown. You have Jocelyn Bodo, a really athletic 7-foot freshman who I think is going to be an absolute monster in this league over time. He has that high major size. He doesn't have all the pure basketball skill yet. He's going to get there. He's only a freshman, but once he gets there, he's going to be an absolute problem. He's already a great defender and rebounder. And you have Abdullah Thiam, who's a very good shooter. I just think the way this team functions, the way they play together, they have a lot of talent. Miles creates a lot of shots. I think this is a team to win the conference, but their defense is a big problem. But they're sitting at 11-4 right now, so got to give them some love. Who stands out in this league to you, Brian?
Yeah, I really like that pick too. I think High Point is the team to beat. Long was a team that had a huge long winning streak. I think they won 9 in a row at one point in time. Was rated on our top
And beating Winthrop right now.
And just a team, again, a team. Griff Aldridge has done a good job with this program, taking them to the tournament already. And he just kind of knows what it takes. They don't have the strongest strength of schedule. They are 12-3. But I think if there was a team outside of this team that just, when you can put together that many wins, I think that's a team to mention. But I really like Radford. You had
I knew you were going to go there. Yeah.
You had a lot of great things to say about them, and even in the early prediction show that we did on the team. And I think really, when you get to conference play, you able to get that new life. I think they have the guard play to be able to do it, and Darius Nichols has done a really good job leading this team in just his third season. So, yeah, I like what I see from that squad in particular. Daquan Smith being a guard, I think they can again make plays and make a lot happen. And yeah, and then I think TJ, what is it, Neesmith? Is that how you say it?
Yep.
Yeah, their leading scorer. Big man inside. Anytime you have that inside-outside punch, and then I think they have the pieces to fill in. So I like Radford in this league to really kind of surprise some people. High Point is playing the best basketball right now, and they will be a team that you have to be able to stop because they can really score.
I mean, that's a battle-tested team you're talking about in Radford. They went and won at West Virginia a couple of weeks ago. Right. Although West Virginia is not an NCAA tournament team, that's still a win on the road against a Big 12 team. You're a Big Sky team or a Big South team. Yeah, you're getting like 75 grand to probably play that game. You're taking that win every day of the week. It shows
that's a huge win. Anytime you get a Power 5 win, that's a major win. And West Virginia is
exactly
changes, but it's a respected program.
I mean, you were a mid-major assistant. How do you go into those bye games where everybody knows you're getting paid to go there? How do you go into that kind of game as a coach?
I think your players, if you have competitors, which, if you have any kind of winning program, and unless you're just starting from the very bottom and building it, competitors want to be able to prove that they belong against those teams. Love those games. You love those games almost as much, if not more, than your conference games because, you treat it like an NCAA tournament game before the tournament. You don't know if you're going to make it.
So house money, really.
Yeah, you want to be able to stack up and take the money and run, so to speak. You want to win. So I think all those are huge to be able to show your team, and they're huge confidence builders. So I think that's a big sign of what that Radford team can do. I know we're kind of zipping through conferences. I'm curious your thoughts on Conference USA. It's a different Conference USA. It doesn't look quite the same. Liberty's been the team we've probably talked about the most. Louisiana Tech also has been in the Cinderella top 25. Anyone else stand out other than those two teams?
In a way, I feel like Liberty's lost some of its luster from the beginning of the season because they started off 6-0. Then they lost 2 games of Florida Atlantic and the College of Charleston. They lost against Grand Canyon. And then since then, they played 2 non-D1s. They played Tennessee State, who's a good team. They won at Utah Valley, and then they got hammered in a neutral site game against Alabama. So they just haven't really done much in the last month. They lost a couple of games. So I feel like in a way, we forget how good this team is, and they are a really good team. It just comes down to 3-point shooting for them because that's their DNA. They're going to play that really slow tempo under Richie McKay. They're going to play that pack line defense. But I think the key for them winning this conference is Colin Porter shooting the basketball better. He's only shooting the ball at 28% from deep this year. He's around 40% as a freshman. They're going to need him to really step up because he is an important piece for this team alongside Brody Peebles, Caden Matheny, and Kyle Rowe. They'll need him to really get going here if they're able to win this conference because you have contenders like Western Kentucky, who's been really good in the first year. Yeah. I mean, Steve Lutz can really coach, can he?
Yeah, he can definitely coach. And I was thinking about his first year at Corpus Christi. They're not the top seed. Obviously, last year they were the defending champs, top seed, and they did it again. But The first year they were not the top seed. I think they were the
Hmm.
fourth Southland
Yeah.
Conference. Went to the tournament. They've now won one, two, three, four, five, six, seven in a
A
row.
lot of games.
They're 11-3. They haven't been again. They don't have a ton of. Sometimes just about winning. It's not always
Hmm.
about play. If you can build that winning buy-in and get that momentum and your new system as a new coach establishing that, I
Yep.
think that is a big deal. And he can definitely coach ball and coaches that really teach and really have a way about themselves. Obviously, he comes from the Purdue tree along with the Creighton tree. So he's been at a couple stops along the way that are some of the best programs in the country. But I think this team is probably the team that no one is talking about that really has a chance to punch their ticket or win the regular season. Really, just because it starts at the top with the coaching factor and that they have the momentum going into conference play. So I think this is the team I would pick out to say to keep a close eye on. Don McHenry being one of the guys leading the way,
Hmm.
really talented. Then Brandon Newman and Tyrone Marshall are guys that stick out to me. So yeah, I go some guys you don't want to really bet against, and I think he's one of these guys that has this team playing really good basketball at the right time, and definitely a team that has a ton of tradition. It's not an easy. I mean, probably the best home court advantage in the league,
Oh
arguably.
yeah. Yeah, I
Uh,
think so. Yeah.
a big time basketball tradition, and I think just restoring that this
It,
team will only
and
get better.
some upset fans. Like Western Kentucky fans were not happy about the Rick Stansberry era. That wasn't going well. I mean, they always had the most talent in that league, and they just didn't win.
Yeah, it was an interesting time. I was in the league at that time, so
Yeah, why
I
why
was.
did that happen? What's the Brian Burton reason for that being the case? Because I've been very curious because they had Charles Bassey, they had Hollingsworth, they had all these dudes, and they just couldn't win anything.
I mean, it's to his defense though. The hard part for Western Kentucky is it was literally the Grant McCaslin, Ross Hodge, UNT era that really did the job in that league and took a lot of that luster.
That's
UAB was
true.
obviously really good at
Yeah.
that time. They went to the championship of the NIT last year. You
Hmm.
think about a guy like Kenneth Lofton Jr., who was dominant at La Tech. They won the regular season one of those years with Eric Conkle. So
Yep.
it's not like they weren't at the bottom. Now the last year
No,
they
but
weren't very good last year, but they had a couple years where it came down to the last game of the season between North Texas and Western Kentucky. So it just never quite came together like they wanted it to. And then
mhm,
that last year they really just
just
couldn't
didn't
quite
happen. Yeah.
didn't quite happen. So I think there's I don't know the real reason why, but they were closer than what they're probably giving credit in a lot of ways.
Well, on the flip side, what makes Steve Lutz such a good coach? Because at some point, it's just a trend of you being a great coach. If you're able to go from one stop to another and just keep winning, and obviously, it's what he did at Corpus Christi. It's what he's doing at Western Kentucky. What makes him such a successful basketball coach for a guy that has only been a head coach for 3 seasons?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. So I'm a Texas guy, grew up in Texas, have seen Steve Lutz's career all the way back when he was at Stephen F. Austin as an assistant coach, was at SMU, he's been a lot of stops, but I think he's a guy that builds tremendous relationships. People respect him. I got a chance to broadcast his game last year when he was at Corpus and see that team. Obviously very detailed oriented, but he understands how to get the most out of players. He understands the nuances within the game that help give you a chance to eliminate your mistakes. They're not going to beat themselves, and he's going to figure out how to put. Again, it's coaching is about getting players to be able to buy in, and how can we be the best version of ourselves. So I think they're good defensively, also free flowing offensively to where players like to play for him. And again, when you're a teacher, which he is, your teams get better and better and better as the year goes on. And we talked about who he's worked under, and I think that kind of speaks for itself as well. So I'll give them a nod to be a team
Mm-hmm.
that really can make some noise. And I agree with you on Liberty. I think La Tech, you mentioned this maybe once before. I love them on the defensive end. I do think they're
Elite.
they're gonna be in the conversation because of that. They they need to find another groove offensively to take the next step. I think that's
Yep.
the you mentioned it before. They do have very good guard play. They just can they take the step when you have to win those close games? Do you have some guys that can make some plays? And can you get kind of some of those close marginal games at two possession games? Can you win those games? You know what I mean?
They have talented guards, but I don't think their guards are good enough. to be able to win this conference. I want them to be, and that's the biggest thing here. Like I think Tyler Henry individually is really talented. He can shoot the ball. I think Sean Newman is really talented. I think Talik Chavez is a solid player. But if you're starting these three guys together, you're going to need them all to have a different gear that they can hit, like you said. And I just
Right.
don't know if any of them really do. So you're putting a lot of pressure on Bacho and Crawford to get going because teams are going to force those three guards to shoot the basketball from outside, to make plays. And if they're not able to do that, we're going to see a part two of what happened against St. Louis late in the game, what happened against Seattle in overtime, what happened late against Grand Canyon. Like those are three games that Louisiana Tech could have won. They should have beat St. Louis. That game was won. They had that game under wraps. That was their game, and they lost it. They could have beat Seattle. They could have beat Grand Canyon. Those were three games that they led in during the second half that they should have won. And we would be having a totally different conversation about them right now, right?
Yeah, I think the part I would say too is, so many new guys on this team. Isaiah Crawford really
Mm-hmm.
the only one that's an anchor to coming back and preseason player of the year. I think that as the team goes on, like those losses sometimes when you can learn from them, and Calvin Hesser, again, another really good basketball coach, has worked for Kelvin Sampson, has worked at Texas Tech, has worked for some of the best coaches as well. Eric Conkle, recruited, who we just mentioned, and has been in this league at the same place, recruited big fella, Zach or Kenneth Lofton,
Mm-hmm.
recruited. So he knows what it takes. He obviously recruited Bacho as well, another elite NBA type talent player. I think sometimes with guards, it takes a little bit of time to teach, show the film, learn the lessons, have the hard loss so you can get it later. So I do think this La Tech team has enough. It's just, can they get it going the way that Coach Hester wants them to? So yeah, I'm curious to watch that one. Big West. I meant to say this conference before.
You skipped the
This
Big
one,
West. Yeah, you hate the West Coast. It's okay.
no, I think this is one of the better mid-major leagues that people aren't probably even considering as this good of a league. I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
look at the teams early on, we were high on, and especially yourself, but we interviewed the best player from UC Santa Barbara, Mitchell. We know
Mm-hmm.
that they went to the tournament last year. They haven't been able to get it going yet. We'll let you dive into that. Hawaii's been ranked in our Cinderella top 25, not to mention Long Beach, not to mention UC Irvine. I'm probably missing somebody in here that also has been ranked, but I feel like, oh yeah, Northridge, we haven't talked
Yeah,
about this.
they've
Ranked
been
them.
great.
They've won 6 in a row. So this league is as wide open. It feels like every year this league is wide open, but this league in particular really has a lot of firepower of teams that can do some damage. So I would love to hear some of your takes on some of these same teams that we just mentioned.
I mean, Ken Palm has a 70 spot difference between UC Irvine and the second place team, Long Beach State. I don't think the gap is really that big, but I also think oh, I guess Hawaii is second. They're one spot behind, but 134 and 135. I think Hawaii is right in that mix. You have two great guards with Jovan McClanahan and Noel Coleman. You have a lot of size, Justin McCoy, Bernardo da Silva. I think it really just comes down to what kind of game are you getting from Noel Coleman in a conference tournament setting, because he's the kind of guy that could score 25, but he's also streaky at times. So if he's going
Right.
to have one of those games where he has 7 points, Hawaii's probably not going to win. But if he goes off like he can, that team's going to be really dangerous. One team I'm kind of looking out for, though, is UC Davis. You have two really good guards with T.Y. Johnson and Eli Pepper. I think those two guards make up the best duo in the conference. And then you have some other contributing pieces. Their biggest issue is inside play. We saw that against UC Santa Barbara, a game that they won pretty convincingly by 14 points. They struggled to defend Johan Traore. They're really gonna struggle to defend some of the bigs in this conference because they don't have a lot of established size. They play Ade Adebayo down low a lot. He's 6'5". They're really splitting minutes between Francisco Bora and Nico Rochak. Neither of those two guys provide much on the offensive end. So it's going to be really interesting to see how UC Davis is able to defend some of the bigger teams in this conference, but they should be right up there.
And they're
My
already
pick,
2-0. They've gotten off to a good start. So
yeah,
you're
exactly.
spot on. Go ahead.
No, I think my pick is probably Hawaii, though. It's tough. I mean, Hawaii and UC Irvine are kind of similar because they're going to be teams that defend, but I think Hawaii has better guards. So I'm going to lean with Hawaii to win the league. But they
Wow.
just lost to Cal State Fullerton at home.
I
So,
was just about to bring up Fullerton. Fullerton's a team that Dedrick Taylor's always kind of worked this magic of
mm-hmm,
to the NCAA tournament. Has been already twice since he's been there. Has been in the championship game at least 3 times. I believe it might even be
mm-hmm.
4.
We
So
can we can double check that. Yeah, let's
I think
see.
Max Jones, leading this team in scoring. They already got that win against Hawaii, which I don't think anyone probably projected that. They're
No.
sitting at 8-6. I mean, Ken Palm has them as far as the mid-major conferences. They're top 5 as far as the conferences that we cover.
Uh-huh.
Missouri Valley being 1, Ivy being 2, the WAC being 3, Conference USA. So they're 6 as far as rated in the conferences. So
as you guys know by now, we've partnered with BetMGM Sportsbook for this college basketball season. We're going to be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks and predictions throughout the college basketball season. And we are going to have special offers for you, the listeners and the viewers on the Field of 68 each and every week during the season. If you haven't signed up with BetMGM yet, use the bonus code FIELD1500 and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager on BetMGM Sportsbook. Here's what you got to do. Download the BetMGM app. Sign up using the bonus code FIELD1500. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if that bet loses. Just make sure you use the bonus code FIELD1500 when you sign up. And remember, BetMGM is now available under one wallet in select states. As a New Jersey resident, this is super convenient for me when I have to go cover games in New York or Philly. When crossing state borders, just log into your existing account instead of having to create new accounts in each state that you go to. And most importantly, I got to let you know, we do have some fun stuff coming up for this college basketball season. Bet insurance tokens, college hoops odds boosts, my personal favorite, parlay odds boosts. So download the BetMGM app today.
final thoughts on the Big West Conference, as they are one of the better mid-major conferences in the Cinderella poll.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think some minor technical difficulties there got in my thoughts originally, but I think it's Hawaii that's going to ultimately be the one to beat in this league because UC Irvine's good, but I question that offense long term. The pieces for Hawaii's offense are Javon McClanahan and Noel Coleman. If those two are clicking at the right time with Hawaii's length and their defense, I think they'll be a real problem in this league. But I think UC Santa Barbara still has a real chance to make some noise because you have a guy like AJ Mitchell who just scored 39 points the other night. But people are going to have to help him out because not one person can go win you a conference tournament. You need Johan Traore to keep playing well, but it really comes down to what you're getting from Cole Anderson, Josh Pierre-Louis, and Ben Schlotzberg off the bench. You need those 3 guards to really step up and be able to hit some perimeter jumpers if you're going to be able to win a conference tournament. But the best player on a really good team, I could see Santa Barbara still in that mix, but Hawaii's going to be my pick for now.
I like it. Let's shift to the CAA. We have a number of teams in our poll that we've talked about: College of Charleston, UNCW, Hofstra's been in there at one point in time, Delaware. Who stands out to you in this league in the CAA? For, I guess, just we'll go both. Who stands out, and then who do you think will win it?
Who stands out is an interesting question, I would say, for the standpoint of I think Drexel has been fairly interesting, although they're not a very good offensive team. They just dropped 99 points the other night or the other day on Hampton, and they have a great defense. You have Amari Williams, who's a really good big man. They're going to play their style. They're going to play slow. They're going to defend. They're a great defensive team. But if they're getting guys like May Okros and Luke House to be able to hit perimeter jumpers to help out Amari Williams, I think this could be a really interesting team. My pick is going to be the College of Charleston, though. I'm going to stick with who it was in the preseason. They got off to a really rocky start. They started 1-3. And since then, they are now 9-4. They have won 5 consecutive games, including a win against St. Joe's, including a win over Rhode Island. This is a team that can shoot the basketball, and we're seeing that again. They were impossibly bad shooting the basketball to begin this season. They've gotten back to earth a little bit there, 31% as a team. Through the first 7 games, it was 21%. That was just not sustainable. Rain Smith is really the key to getting this offense going because he's right around 40% from deep again this year. He was really slow to start the year. What it ultimately comes down to, though, are what are you getting from the guards? That's CJ Fulton, that's Kobe Rogers. What are you getting from the guys who run the offense? Also, you have Jordan Crawford and Khalil London as freshmen. I think that's the one thing Pat Kelsey needs to figure out in the biggest moments of the game, who is on the court at that point guard spot. And once they figure that out, I think Charleston is going to be a real force to be reckoned with in this conference.
Yeah, I'm going to go different than that. I'm going to go, and obviously Charleston and their success speaks for itself. Definitely always going to be in that conversation in the end. but there are
Mhm.
9 teams above 500 going into conference play, which is extremely impressive. Says a lot about the depth of this conference. So I'm going to still go. I'm going to ride with UNCW, and I'm going to ride with
I like it.
Hofstra. I think the best 2 individual players is player-led game. Although you don't do it on your own, I think both these teams were in the final 3 last year or won a conference championship regular season within the last 2 years. So Trezarian White, we've talked about him. He's a big-time player. And then Tyler Thomas, leading scorer in the country. Along, they do also have, I'm not exactly sure how you say his name, but Dubar. Is that how you say his name?
He goes by D Stone, so make it easy.
There we go.
Yeah.
Just Hofstra has a talented duo, and then I think UNC Wilmington and Trezarian White. I'm gonna also go with those, but this league is really deep. There's 9 teams, like you said, so I think it's gonna be fun to watch the CAA this year. Let's jump to the horizon. A team that we projected, a league that we projected early on would have a lot of teams that were ranked. They still do have a lot of good basketball teams in here. Teams that have surprised has been Purdue, Fort Wayne, Cleveland State as well. Milwaukee hasn't been quite what we projected them to be, nor has Wright State. Northern Kentucky has also struggled, the preseason favorite, but Youngstown State has also been really good at 10-4. But Green Bay's been a surprise in this league.
They have.
They're already 3-1 in conference. Sundance Wicks has done a terrific job resurrecting this program. Noah Reynolds, who was at Wyoming and I got to see a ton up close, is a big time player in that league. Could be player of the year type of player.
Player of the year favorite right now, I would say. I mean, he had like 36 against Wright State. Like, that's good enough to put you in that conversation.
Oh, he's a big time dude. He was doing he was doing not those exact numbers, but he was putting up some big time numbers in the Mountain West as well.
Oh,
so
yeah.
He's battle tested, but you have 3 teams that have 10 wins or more. Cleveland State 10-5, Purdue Fort Wayne 13-2, Youngstown State 10-4. Who do you like in this league in general, and then who do you pick to win?
I mean, right now, Fort Wayne has been the best team in this conference, and I don't think that's even a debate. Now they're number 1 in KenPom in the conference. They were 300th nationally to begin the season. They're in the 130 range right now, and the biggest reason why this team has been so good is because of the guards. Jalen Jackson coming in as a transfer from UIC. Rasheed Bello, he has been really good. Quentin Morton Robertson, he's been around for a while, but he's having a really good season also. This is a lot of good guards. They can shoot the basketball. John Kaufman really turned things around after losing his entire starting 5 from last year, a team that won 17 games. They were pretty solid. They were really good the year before also. But you mentioned those 3 teams in Wright State, Milwaukee, and Northern Kentucky that haven't quite lived up to expectations.
Yeah.
I think it'll be tough for Northern Kentucky to get back there because Sam Vinson, their second best player towards ACL against St. Mary's, he's done for the year. And then Milwaukee and Wright State are interesting because they could both easily be the best team in the league. Milwaukee's had some injury circumstances, some other circumstances. They dismissed Markeith Browning, a starter from the team. They've been fine since then. It hasn't played much of an impact on the court, but you have lost BJ Freeman for a number of games. He's back. He had a really strong game the other day, like 25 points in their win. So if he's back to full health, they just need to be able to defend because they're one of the worst defensive teams in college basketball, as is Wright State. They're both in like the 350 range of defensive efficiency. That's not a winning formula. Those 2 teams really need to get it going on that end of the floor. And for that reason, that's why I'm going to say I think Youngstown State could be the team that wins this league. Last year, they were in that Wright State category right now of not being able to defend, but being an elite offensive team. They've made it a little bit more even split this year. They're a really good defensive team. They're a really solid offensive team. Comes down to what you're getting from those guards, though. Brandon Rush and Brett Thompson really have to step up because you know what you're going to get from those front court players, Ziggy Reed and DJ Burns. You know they're going to defend. You know that whole team's going to defend. You just need some consistency and some shot making from the outside. But Youngstown State's going to be my pick there.
I love it. I love it. This might be the next league we're going to talk about, might be your favorite league off the record, but the Ivy League, which is rated at the top behind the Missouri Valley as far as the leagues that we cover in mid-major basketball and the Cinderella Poll and Field of 68 mid-major. Princeton, 12-1. We know they are one of the elite teams in the country. Really, really talented and well battle-tested group. You got Cornell at 10-3. Yale at 9-6, who big time team that we've talked about a lot as well. Harvard is 9-4, Penn is 8-7, and Columbia is 8-4. Every team in this league, minus Brown and Dartmouth, are 8 games or better, 2 teams with 10 wins or more. It is going down in the Ivy League. You can say these guys are really smart, but they are getting it done on the court as well. You can't say they're smart. We know they're smart, but they're getting it done on the court as well at a very high level. Talk to us about the breakdown and your thoughts of the Ivy League.
I mean, the clear favorite is going to be Princeton for good reason. This is a team that's 12-1. Their only loss came in close fashion at St. Joe's, a really good St. Joe's team. And this Princeton offense is awesome. 21st in offensive efficiency, 21st in effective field goal percentage, 28th in turnover percentage. They shoot the ball really well from outside. Xavier Lee is an absolute superstar and probably the favorite to win Conference Player of the Year. Then you have Matt Alaco, who can really stroke it from outside. You have Caden Pierce, who is a double threat virtually every night. But what I want to see from this team is when Caden Pierce gets in foul trouble, what are you getting from the rest of the team? I assume they'll go with Zach Martini at the 5 and then play Dalen Davis and go really small with another guard in there. But that's going to cause some issues against some of the bigger teams in the conference like Yale with 7-footer Danny Wolf. So I think it's going to be really interesting. Harvard has some size with Chisholm Okpara. You have Malik Mack, who's dealing with mono right now. Let's see when he gets back. This league will be competitive because Cornell's really good too. I just think Princeton's a team to beat right now. They've been awesome. I don't see any way that you can pick against them right now unless you think that Yale's defense is magically going to get back to what it was last year, which probably won't happen because Danny Wolf isn't that kind of defender that EJ Jarvis and Isaiah Kelly were, but he's a much better offensive player. So they've traded some defense for some offense, and it's worked out at times this year. And they've had some really strange games. They almost blew one today against Howard. They ended up winning in overtime. They were up 16 late. They were able to survive. They lost at home against Fairfield. They blew a huge lead against Vermont. So it's been a really up and down season for Yale, which is why I'm going to go with Princeton to win the league. Is that where you're sitting too?
I would agree. Princeton is the cream of the crop right now and almost undefeated, almost ranked in the top 25 if they hadn't lost that one game. But they are a special bunch that is riding away from their awesome NCAA tournament run last year. So as we end with the Ivy, we'll move to the Atlantic Athletic Conference, excuse me.
The one with 2 A's.
Yes, 2 A's. The MAC with 2 A's. Quinnipiac's leading the way with 9-4 right now. Marist right behind him at 7-4. Fairfield at 7-6. The only 3 teams in this conference with a 500 or better record. Who do you like in this conference? I would have to go with Quinnipiac because of how they've played already. But who do you like in this league?
I'm going to go with Iona. I think that Tobin Anderson finally has his full sum of parts out there with Osborne Shima finally healthy. He missed like the first 10 games of the year. Greg Gordon is a double threat. You have Eden Tretu who can hit some shots. Weza Panzo, both really good shooters. But what it comes down to for me is what you're getting from those 2 freshman guards, Jeremiah Quigley and Gene Araguren. Probably said that wrong, but he's been really impressive so far this year. 6'3", 190, just a really talented guard. Those 2 have really boosted Iona's upside. And when they've looked down at times, you still got some really good production from those 2 freshman guards. They'll only get better and complement the rest of the veteran starting lineup. I think at some point you have to swap one of those starting guards, one of those young guards, in for Joel Brown and bring Joel Brown off the bench because I think this team is better when those freshman guards are on the floor. So I'm going to go with Iona to win this conference. They finally look healthy. They finally look connected. Tobin Anderson's style of forcing turnovers is ingrained in this team. They force turnovers on 21% of defensive possessions. They can shoot the ball from outside. I love this Iona team moving forward.
Yeah, I love that choice. And again, another one of those people or programs that's riding the momentum. They don't ride it because of they had success obviously with Patino last year. A lot of those guys are different. Some of those guys are back, but the program is used to winning in this league. And then Tobin Anderson, what a magical ride he had last season. Hard not to pick Iona. I love that pick. We'll transition to the other MAC conference and see what your thoughts are in this league. Anyone stand out off the top of your mind in this league? The Mid-American. We love from more reasons than one because they now have Ali back. I didn't mean to jump in on it. And Enrique.
No, I'm glad you jumped in there. I was thinking.
Yeah, that would be my pick to this point to win this conference. I do just love this team and what they're about. I'm glad that the 2-time transfers are able to play. He got his waiver before that time period. The surprising team has been Bowling Green at 10-3 so far.
They have.
And Kent State, Toledo have also been good, along with Northern Illinois, Ball State, above 500, and Eastern Michigan just above 500 at 7-6, has one of the best leading scorers in the country in Tyson Acuff. So, yeah, who do you like in this league?
I'm going with you. I'm going with Akron, but I think Kent State isn't too far behind because you have a dominant big man in Chris Payton. Again, another guy who's in a post double numbers every night. He's an athletic freak, just a great player. He's one of the best bigs in this conference without a doubt. It just comes down to what you're getting from Jalen Solinger on a night to night basis. Seems like he's one of those guys, and he's really talented, can create shots. He's incredibly fast in his deep range. But what comes with that sometimes, you're going to get some ill advised shots. And are those 28 footers going to go up, and are they going to go in, or are they just going to be ended up being some bad shots? We'll have to see what comes there. But what are you going to get from Reggie Bass and Gio Santiago, two veteran players? I want to see what you get from them if you're Kent State. Both are guys that can shoot the basketball, haven't shot the ball super well so far this year. They'll need them moving forward. But Akron, when you have Enrique Freeman, who's the clear conference player of the year in this league, you have Ali, who brings a little more ball handling and shooting. You have Sammy Hunter, who's a four-man next to Enrique Freeman, and shoot the ball from the outside. This is a really talented Akron team, really reminiscent of their team a couple of years ago that made the NCAA tournament. Largely the same team minus Xavier Castaneda, who was a really good player for them. But Bowling Green, like you said, has been a huge surprise. Marcus Hill, a JUCO transfer, has been one of the top scorers in college basketball so far this year. Again, another guy in Todd Simon, who was a winner at his previous location in Southern Utah, continuing his winning culture at Bowling Green. They have an 8-game winning streak right now, but it's Akron's league to lose for me. Ohio lost A.J. Brown for the year. That was a big piece of their team. So it's Akron and then Kent State.
Yeah, I love that. And then we'll go to the MEAC, where Norfolk State is the only team above 500 in this conference. Got a huge win versus VCU at VCU, 63-60 earlier in the year. Has also beaten Illinois State. Took a loss to Wichita State, but they've had some good wins. This team is 9-7, and the favorite, in my opinion, Rob Jones, is just continuing to do it no matter who the roster makeup is. Jamari Thomas is a big time player. I think he's a guy that should be a favorite for player of the year in this conference. I just really like the style of play that Coach Jones plays. And I think he's one of those guys every year that you're always kind of looking up, like, is he going to be back, or is somebody going to see that this guy can win at a high level and nab him and give him another opportunity? Not that we want to take anything away from Norfolk State, but Rob Jones is one of the better underrated coaches in the country to just.
I'm shocked he's still there. I mean, to be honest with you, with the way he's won, I'm shocked nobody's gotten him yet.
Yeah, it's easier said than done in these situations, but Norfolk State is the favorite. I think Howard would be right there behind them and kind of in that next tier, but I would go with Norfolk State.
Yeah, Howard's got some pieces with Marcus Dockery and Seth Towns, two great shooters, both high major transfers. Yep. Obviously, I think it comes down to when Shai Odom's healthy again, what that team's going to look like. Their guard play isn't as strong as it was last year with Elijah Hawkins, obviously transferring to Minnesota. So I'm going to go with Norfolk State to win the conference again. They have a really strong guard duo with Jamari Thomas coming over from UNC Wilmington, like you said, and then Alan Beatrand, who is now on his fourth college, started his career at Towson, then he went to Rhode Island, then he went to Ryder. Now he's found a home at Norfolk State where he's averaging 11 points per game. This Norfolk State team can score the basketball. I think they'll be really competitive in this conference once again. And when you have two guards that can really go, like Beatrand and Thomas, you're going to win some games.
Yeah, we transition to the Northeast Conference. Unique in the fact that there is not one team yet that has a 500 or better record. Who stands out in this league that seems like it's completely wide open?
I mean, it's wild, but Sacred Heart coming into the year was the favorite. They have not been very good so far this year. They started the year 4-9, then they picked up a win over Dartmouth and then a win over a non-D1 school. But Nico Gillette has not shot the ball well from deep this year. As a whole, the team just hasn't looked as comfortable. Joey Riley hasn't shot the ball well, and those were your two best players coming in the year two all-conference first-team selections. But you finally have a team in Merrimack that is postseason eligible after sitting out for 4 years, winning the conference tournament twice, and not being able to participate in the NCAA tournament. I think they'll get there this year. Joe Gallo is going to lead the Merrimack Warriors with that tough zone defense. They force a ton of turnovers. They're a really stingy team. They lost a lot of pieces in the portal, but they end up bringing Jordan Durkak in. They have Adam Clark, who is a really good young guard from Philly. He's tough. He's not a shooter. He's over 14 from three this year, but he's quick. He gets inside. And he just has that Philly toughness in him. Samba Diallo, a transfer from Manhattan. You have a lot of size overall. And I think this Merrimack team has enough guard scoring to get you to that next level and win another conference tournament title, this time appearing in the NCAA tournament for the first time in program history.
Yeah, they do have one of the top 115 defensive efficiency defenses in the country per KenPom. So I'm going to ride with you on that one as well and say that will be my pick. We'll transfer and
We're transferring?
We're transferring. We're in the portal. We're going
who isn't?
We're going to the OVC next. Western Illinois 8-6, Morehead State 10-4, Tennessee Martin 9-6, SIU Edwardsville 8-7, Tennessee State, I believe I said that 8-7.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the winning programs as far as preseason winning records. Morehead State 10-4. I don't know if I said it either, but yes. What is your thoughts on who you like here as the favorite?
You know, it's interesting because Morehead State was the favorite coming into the regular season or coming into the preseason, but Mark Freeman, the conference preseason player of the year, went down with an injury, but they've still been really good. They lost by 1 against Indiana. They're 10-4 on the year. Drew Thelwell has been really good, but the biggest piece for them has been Riley Minix, a transfer from a non-D1 school. He's averaging over 17 points per game. He's a big man that's 6'7", 230, but he's athletic. He's physical, gets inside, and just makes things happen in the post. He's been a terrific addition for them. They run a lot of their offense through him. They use Jordan Lathan and Drew Thelwell to hit a lot of outside shots. Khalil Thomas shooting over 40% from deep. So I like what Preston Spradlin's been able to do, and I think he's another guy that could get a job this offseason with another strong season because last year they won the OVC regular season after losing Janai Broom. They lost their best player in Mark Freeman in the preseason, and they're right back in that same conversation. I think that goes to show just how good of a coach Preston Spradlin is. He's a winner, and he finds ways to win even in tough circumstances.
What we're going to move next to the SoCon.
Wild one here.
I'll go back to the Patriot after, but what about the SoCon? What do you like? There's a lot of sizzle in this conference right now. What do you see? What are your observations?
I mean, right now, Furman is 6-8 after losing to UNC Greensboro. They are extremely depleted. JP Pegues is hurt right now. Marcus Foster hasn't played in a month. And they also missed Alex Williams, who's missed several games this year. They lost to Anderson SC. I'm going to assume that's Anderson, South Carolina. I think that's a NAIA school, might be a D2 school, but this is looking like the worst year of Bob Ritchie's tenure at Furman, and obviously circumstances are difficult. You lost 2 big players in Jalen Slauson and Mike Bothwell, but injuries have just completely altered this season. They had some really good close games. They barely lost to Wyoming and UAB, and they led Princeton for most of that game. They were close against Arkansas. They lost in a double overtime thriller, 117-110 against Tulane. If they're fully healthy, I think this is a team that can win the league, but we don't know when that's going to happen. They still have major defensive issues, but when they get the whole sum of the parts back, I think this is a team we could see winning the conference, but we don't know when that's going to be the case. So my pick's going to be Western Carolina. Justin Gray has a really good team on his hands. They are now 12-2 after beating the Citadel. Fontarius Woolbright is one of the most underrated players in college basketball.
Yes.
You like Woolbright too, don't you?
Yeah, dominant player. I mean,
yeah,
be another one of those guys. Player of the year. I think he was preseason of the year.
He was
one of the best rebounders in the country. Can really score the ball. They have a great, just entourage of guards. To be honest,
they do
play, and I love the freedom in which they play with. I love the toughness, the competitive nature. They've been one of our teams that we've constantly had in the top 25 on a Cinderella poll, and they've earned it. Got off to the best record, I think, in school history to start. So I really like this team a lot too. UNC Greensboro.
That's your pick?
I would say that's my pick. I would say that's my pick. UNC Greensboro and Samford are probably the teams that are right there with them. They do have 8 teams that come into conference play with winning records, which makes for a really competitive conference. Samford has been kind of the sleeper team. They've jumped into our top 25 poll as well, the Cinderella poll. UNC Greensboro has also been in there. So those are probably the 2 teams that I see competing with them the most and giving them the most of a challenge, and also have a chance to cut down some nets.
I agree with you. I think Greensboro's defense is going to be tough. Obviously, Furman's going to find their way at some point, but you got to give some love to what Western Carolina has been able to accomplish so far.
Yeah, next we'll go to the Patriot League, another one of these rare conferences that to this point hasn't had a ton of success in the non-con. No one with a winning record coming into conference play. Colgate has been the power in this conference. I don't think that changes. That would be my pick. Nothing has shifted for me on this, although they haven't played great basketball yet. Hopefully, conference play can be a little more where they can settle in and be a better version of themselves.
Yeah, this is bordering on like one of the worst conferences in college basketball. There's not a lot here. I mean, it's Colgate, and you're just going to cross your fingers if you're them and hope you figure it out like you usually do. They haven't shot the ball well this year. Their turnovers are way higher than they typically are. But at the end of the day, it's Colgate, it's Matt Langle. They are just completely dominant in this conference, and I don't expect that to change.
Yeah, speaking of dominant, we're going to the Southland Conference next, and one of the best mid-major teams in the country, the surprise team, not necessarily because of the coach. We know the success he's had. We interviewed him just last episode, but the program has not had this kind of national success, nor was it expected for this team to do what they are doing. Just coming off a fresh win against Michigan, they are tops in many categories that they have never quite been in this space nationally, and they are the only team in the league outside of Corpus Christi at 7-6 that has a winning record. It is McNeese's league to win, and people are going to have to go and beat them not only during the season, but the conference tournament is in Lake Charles, and it will be rocked. So I'm going with McNeese. It's hard not to think that they are going to slow down a beat at all. Such a good offensive team, a top 50 efficiency, number one in the country in turnover percentage. They don't beat themselves, number one in steal percentage. Just some random number ones that they have, but Shahada Wells is an elite basketball player. There's a lot of people that transfer from high major and they step into programs that are more mid-major or lower level programs. But Shahada Wells has been dominant as one of the best players in the country. He's played like an All-American on the biggest of stages, and I love Christian Shoemate. I was able to do this conference tournament last year as a broadcaster, got a chance to see him play, and he is just an absolute relentless warrior, a mismatch nightmare. They obviously have other really good players as well, DJ Richards, amongst many others, but I love what Will Wade has been able to do. It's a comeback story. Whether you like him or not, you have to respect the way that he's won every single stop he's been as a head coach.
No doubt. This is probably the easiest pick on the board because they're just top to bottom better than every other team in this league. And obviously, it's not easy to go through a conference tournament and completely dominate and go through a conference season and completely dominate. But if McNeese State is projected to, like they are, win every single game in this league by a convincing margin, they're going to have some serious at-large consideration. Obviously, every game in this league will be a quadrant 4 game pretty much, but if they're able to win each game by like 10, 15, that's asking a lot. But if they're able to do that and they have enough talent to do that, I think we're going to have some seriously difficult conversations if they fall short in the conference tournament. I don't think they will. I think they'll run through the league. I think they'll run through the league tournament. This is an unprecedentedly good team in the Southland. They're just that much better than everybody else. Shahada Wells at 30 against Michigan. Like this team went on the road and completely dominated a Big Ten team. That doesn't happen for Southland teams very often. So you got to give credit where it's due. This McNeese State team is legit.
Yeah, they're legit. They remind you of some of those Brad Underwood teams that he had in Boston that were really dominant defensively as well. Let's move to the Summit League. St. Thomas 10-5. Don't know that anybody saw that coming, but I love the way that this transitioned from Division III to Division I. Didn't change their roster. Really brought a Division III team to Division I and has added pieces as it goes. Tommy Bruner for Denver is the leading scorer, one of the leading scorers in the country. They're at 9-6, coming in with a winning record. South Dakota 8-7, North Dakota 8-7. It's a pretty wide open league. It still feels like, surprisingly, St. Thomas, already 2-0 in the league, is the favorite to win this thing.
Yeah, and obviously St. Thomas.
As of today.
they're still not able to play in the conference tournament, so that'll be I don't actually in the Summit League. I'm not sure if you can play in the conference tournament. I have to double check that, but they can't play in the NCAA
So the
tournament. In the
transition
conference
from
tournament,
Division 3 to Division 1, so you're 100% right.
yeah. So they can play in the conference tournament, but they can't play in the NCAA tournament. So if they're able to get there, it'll be a Mary Mac situation where whoever they play will get into the NCAA tournament. I believe that's how that worked. That's how Fairleigh Dickinson got
I
there
think
last year.
I think last year though they had a deal with was it Bellarmine? I'm drawing a blank, but
That was the year before, yeah.
the year before, yeah, when Jacksonville went to the championship,
Mm-hmm.
but they went
Lost.
to regular yeah, they lost, and the regular season winner
Mm-hmm.
went to the NCAA tournament. So not
That's
sure,
true. Yeah.
not sure on the logistics on that, but who do you think can
We'll have to double check when we get there.
NCAA tournament in this league?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm going to stick with South Dakota State. They've had some rough games. They got blown out by Norfolk State. They got blown out by Wyoming. But when it comes down to it, this team has a win over Wichita State on the road. They won at Southern Miss. And I really like Zeke Mayo still. He is a great player. I think it just comes down to what you're getting from the other pieces on the roster, like a Luke Apple. They have a really good freshman guard also I'm blanking on the name here, but William Kyle's a really good big man. They have a lot of pieces on the South Dakota State team. Then you have to think about the winning pedigree. They're a team that wins a lot. That freshman guard, Kalen Gary, he's averaging around 10 points per game, shooting 40% from three. 4 players on the South Dakota State team average 11 points or better. I think their offense will only get better as the season rolls on. Mayo's going to be an absolute stud in the league. I think South Dakota State will win this conference.
Okay, we're going to transition to our last three conferences. The SWAC, another conference that does not have a winning record team going into conference play. That's not uncommon with the way that they have to play their preseason schedules. Southern 6-7 looks like the best team. They got a really good win against UNLV early in the year. We don't have to spend a ton of time on this conference at this moment in time, but who stands out to you? Jackson State's also grabbed some big wins. Prairie View's gotten a big win. Who looks good to you?
I'm going to go Jackson State. I like Ken Evans a lot. He had a huge game in the win over Missouri. I believe he had 30-plus points in that one. He's just an absolute dominant scorer. And once they lost Deshaun Ruffin for the season before the season started, it really put a lot of pressure on Ken Evans to be just the guy again. And he's shooting 50% from three. He has been terrific so far this season for Coach Mo Williams. Then you have some other pieces like Chase Adams who can get inside and make plays happen as a small guard, just kick it out to shooters. You have Colty Young, who's having a really good year. Jordan O'Neal, who is a threat down low. This Jackson State team has some pieces. They won at an SEC school, so I think they'll be able to win this conference.
Yeah, I love that pick. Let's transfer to the top 25. James Madison, JMU-led Sun Belt Conference, 13-0 still. Appalachian State on their heels.
They may never lose, honestly. Like, who knows? Maybe they'll never lose.
I mean, it would be a heck of a story, especially after what the football team was able to do this season. Yeah. Who knew that JMU was an everything school, as they say? I'm picking James Madison. I just love the energy with this team. I love their synergy. They have a ton of guys back. They have cohesion. They're only getting better. I do think people will. This is a really deep conference, which makes it really. There's a lot of teams in it. There's a lot of tough travel. South Alabama is another winning team in this league. Scott Cross and his Troy squad are 7-6. Louisiana's 7-6 by Marlin squad. So there's some other teams that have winning records, but really it looks like it's clear cut James Madison or App State as far as the favorites. And I'm just with James Madison. This team can really, really score at a high clip. Again, they have chemistry and they just have that kind of winning edge to them. I don't know if they're going undefeated, but I'm still picking them.
Yeah, App State is a bit of an opposite team to what James Madison is. They're not going to play as up-tempo. They're not going to shoot as many threes. They're not as good offensively, but what they are good at is not turning the ball over, scoring inside, and being an elite defensive team. They have a win over Auburn, who I think is a legitimate Final Four caliber team. And I think App State is going to be able to be the team that wins this conference. I like James Madison a lot, but when it comes down to it, I think they'll have a tough game against this App State team who is dominant in the post with Trayvon Spillers and Justin Abson, 2 shot swatting, post defending bigs. It really comes down to how their shooting is going to come in a big game in a conference tournament. They need Chris Mantis, Miles Tate, and Jordan Marsh to be their shooters because they just are not a very good shooting team, only 29% from three. They're a team that's not going to beat themselves. They're not going to make many mistakes. And if they're hitting those perimeter jumpers, it's just a bonus. So I like App State a lot.
Yeah, I love those two picks. I'm obviously going with the hot hand, and I think in a tournament setting, it's just going to be hard
Can't
to.
go all chalk. I don't want to go chalk on everything, you
Sure.
know.
No, I get it. I get it. I love the App State pick. Dustin Kearns has done a tremendous job, and he's led this program to the tournament already before,
Mhm.
and he's just done an absolutely fantastic job. Last conference, the Western Athletic Conference. I love GCU. I have no problem saying it out loud. This team has
Mhm.
all the things you need, including a terrific home court advantage, including guys that have already won a championship in this league and cut down the nets and gone to the NCAA tournament. I love everything about this team as far as their depth, their playmaking, their star power, and Ty and Grant Foster. Ray Harrison, their backcourt has got as good of a mid-major backcourt as you could imagine. And then Gabe McLaughlin, I think, is as good of a just do everything forward, glue guy, toughness guy, score, double double, doesn't matter. I love the way this team plays, and again, I love their home court advantage. And I think there's a lot of depth in this league. There's a lot of winning programs as we kind of talk about teams that are a lot of 8-5. There's a Seattle, there's a Stephen F. Austin, Cal Baptist. You got Charleston at 9-4, who we haven't talked about the interim job that Coach Jones has done, but he's done an
Mhm.
outstanding job leading this program in a good way. But I think it's Grand Canyon all the way, regular season and tournament. That's just my thought.
Nah, I'm with you. I think Seattle's going to really contend. They have those guards with Cam Tyson and Alex Schumacher and John Christophilus. But I think it comes down to what you have with Grand Canyon, and that is the best player in the conference with Ty and Grant Foster. You have Ray Harrison, you have McLaughlin, you have Jovan Blackshear back, who was the preseason
Right.
conference player of the year a season ago. He got hurt, and now
Yep.
he's finally back off the bench. That's just another added weapon. You have Chance Moore as a big time defender. This team just has so many pieces. They can go a lot of different directions. Coach Drew is a loaded team, a team that is 12-1, and maybe they enter the at-large conversation at some point here.
Yeah, and I think not only are they going to can they make it to the tournament, but I think this is the team when they get in the tournament because they have high major players, they have
Mm-hmm.
experience, they have backcourt, they have guard play. I just think they can actually make a run, be one of those
They'll
second.
be the most common upset pick in brackets for sure.
I
For
could
sure.
I could see that. I could see that outside of maybe possibly a JMU who may be ranked. They may not be
But
much.
they might be like a 6 seed. So like,
They may not feel like the upset as much. So that makes sense. That makes a lot
yeah.
of sense. This Grand Canyon team, they don't remind you of, I don't want to overstate this, but they have the kind of like the FAU feel to them, the way
Mm-hmm.
they play
I
last
get
year.
that.
Obviously, FAU went to the Final Four. I'm not saying Grand Canyon is doing that, but they just have a feel of just a mid-major team with some elite guard play that's just able to get a lot done. So, final wrapping thoughts up of
Did we skip the Missouri Valley?
we did skip the Missouri Valley. I don't
Yeah, I
know
was
how
gonna say I felt like we did.
that's the heat of the heat right there. I
Yeah.
saved that for last. It was all a
Yeah.
setup.
That was what he planned. This is like the WWE. This is all set up.
It's all a setup. Okay, so Missouri Valley, the number one conference in the conference that we cover. So much firepower here. Indiana State's been the team. Drake 12-2, Indiana State 12-2, Southern Illinois 10-4, elite scorer in Xavier Johnson. Belmont's 9-5, Illinois State's 8-6,
Yeah.
Missouri State's
Winners.
9-4, Evansville's 10-4, Bradley is 8-5, Illinois Chicago 7-7. I mean, this Missouri Valley League is on fire. They're a top 10 conference in the country at any level right now. And I don't know. We talked about this before. They don't necessarily have an opportunity to get in that large bid because they're going to kind of beat each other up so much. But boy, is this going to be a fun league to watch. I don't even know if I can say who do you pick to win it. Who do you just like in this league?
I mean, I like Drake. I like Tucker DeVries. I like the way that their defense is slowly improving. Kevin Overton and Atten Wright are two huge players to complement DeVries. But at the end of the day, I have to go with what I've seen, and that is Indiana State being an elite offensive team. They really competed against Michigan State. I think the final score is like an 11-point difference, but they were right in it 4 or 5 points for a majority of that second half. They even led for a little bit. Obviously, playing in East Lansing is not easy, but they were able to compete for a large portion of that game. I think that Indiana State is the best team in this conference. Isaiah Swope, Robbie Avila, Ryan Conwell. You have a ton of pieces. They're going to be able to shoot threes, and I think they have the most upset potential for a team in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, there's so many teams in this league. I mean, we cover this conference quite a bit. We'll be talking a lot about Missouri Valley basketball. I do love what Missouri State's been able to sneak in and do. They snuck in our Cinderella Pole along with Southern Illinois. Just having a player like Xavier Johnson who can score the way he can score any given night. I really like that squad as well. But I think there'll be a lot of surprises in this league. There's going to be some big time games. There's not going to be a undefeated winner at the top at the end. There's not going to be a, hey, we only lost 1 or 2 games. I believe there's going to be some serious competitive play in this league, and can't wait to see it. All right, final minute. Any thoughts from Sean Paul as we close out the show?
I mean, I'm just excited to see how this all plays out. We'll be back next week with another episode to talk about some more of the big mid-major headlines. Hopefully, we have a lot to talk about as we did this week with our conference revisiting. So we'll see you all next week, right?
Yeah, 2024. We'll be back at it again, and